hear me well. If I speak too fast, you just move your hands up, because I tend to be really a bit over the top. I want to talk about co-productions today, and I thought, well, most of you, or a lot of you, know about co-productions. You know what co-productions are. And I thought, what can I talk about that you might not know? So, co-productions. Hell on earth, blissful paradise, whatever it is. It might make your life really easy, or you might want to slash your wrist. But the question is, what is it? Right? So, and where does it come from? So what's the history? Does anyone know how co-productions started? No. Okay. Because to understand co-production, anything you want to understand, it's always good to understand where it comes from. So, it started with the Marshall Plan in 1948. And of course it has to do something with the US, because the US, the Marshall Plan, or the European Recovery Program, they spent tons of money in order to help war-torn Europe and basically remove trade barriers, modernize industry, support European prosperity, and of course prevent communism, right? So not beloved by everyone, but some people, and it actually helped Germany, among others. So what has that to do with films? So after the Second World War, the film industry in the US was one of the few industries that actually made money, and not only domestically in the US, but also abroad. But the Marshall Plan says that you cannot draw foreign currency profits from the respective countries in Europe. So the American films made money in Europe, in other currencies, but the Marshall Plan prevented them to take the money from Europe. So what did they do? They started companies and outlets and co-produced. Literally started co-producing. Those days they did it, actually. They don't do it anymore. With Europe. That was mainly UK and Italy. Okay, so that was the first cooperation. It was because of the frozen assets. Then, Hollywood, not being stupid, of course, there was this tax exemption rules, which was also connected to the Marshall Plan, which said, if an American citizen works abroad 510 days within a time frame of 1.5 years, he or she does not need to pay taxes. The reason for that was to sort of help humanitarian workers, to get humanitarian workers over to Europe to help build up Europe, war-torn Europe. All right? So then it was like, great. What does it help Hollywood? Well, agents those days, that's William Morris, the son of William Morris, which is the oldest agency in the world. That's Gersh, Phil Gersh. That's not an agent, but he looks like an agent. That's Groucho Marx. So they understood that their actors, their directors, their screenwriters, with all these corporations, they all worked in Europe. And they fulfilled this requirement, so they would earn more money. If they earn more money, the agents would earn more money, right? So that, again, supported the co-production, with the result that we had these spaghetti westerns, and we had the sandals and sword films, right? Mostly directed by Italians with Hollywood stars, for example. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's a co-production, and let me tell you, it's a co-production between Italy, Spain, Germany, Constantine film, not credited, and the US. And of course directed by an Italian with US stars. Or, I love that one, 1972, that's Treasure Island. That's a British, French, German, Arthur Brauner, Italian, Spanish film starring Orson Welles as Long John Silver, directed by John Hughes. And this is the Time poster of the same film, right? So basically up to the 70s, and you could see it also that it had an impact on the European situation. I'm going a bit away for you to understand why we do co-production. It's always good to understand why. Helps you to deal with the system. So the European situation, up to the 20s, Europe was the market leader. Remember, we are in a different situation now. Europe was, when it came to film and exporting film, the market leader. Then, with the rise of the Hollywood studios in Los Angeles, that changed, right? Then came, on top of it, the Second World War, and that changed again, right? So we lost all our talents, they all went to Hollywood, and the rest is history. So, the benefit that the US has, it's a single market, right? And a single market with one main language. Nowadays, the US only has a population of 321 million people. On top of it, we have Canada. On top of it, we have South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Ireland, and all the others, and specifically the younger generations who really watch films in original language, meaning, they watch American films, right? So that's easy, of course, if you have such a strong market you can tap into compared to the European market. We are diverse, and we have to be diverse because it was a UNESCO, a UN rule, and remember war-torn Europe? And one of the reasons why we have the European Union is not only because of economy, that was part of it, but it was to sort of prevent another thing like the Second World War. Peace in Europe is partly possible because we have the EU, which a bunch of intellectuals in the 50s started thinking about in Rome. Well, that's later. So, it's easy, of course, for them to tap into these markets. So the question was, what does the EU do against the dominance of US films? Because in the 70s, and still, with one exception, which is France, because that's their protective, the US share in the European market is almost 70%. And if I would ask you, and I'm not going to do that because we don't have the time, but if I would ask you, who do you think is the best known actor or actress, dead or alive, ever known in the film history? I tell you what you would tell me. Humphrey Bogart, Marilyn Monroe, Charlie Chaplin. And it's wrong. Because you have been Americanized. That's the result of the history. You have been Americanized because think, India, biggest film industry in the world, 1.21 billion population, with a penetration of the Indian cinema in the rural areas of over 80%. Everyone watches film. It's not like in Germany between 17 and 26, like 80% watch films. Of a 1.21 billion population, we have Pakistan, Afghanistan, we have the diaspora, we have the entire Middle East, we have Malaysia, Indonesia. Do you think a farmer in the middle of nowhere in India knows Charlie Chaplin or Marilyn Monroe or Matt Damon? They don't. But they know Shah Rukh Khan. Right? So, it's always in the eye of the beholder, and it's always a point of view which you have to take. Understand the system. You work in co-production, that's one of the most important things. So, rise and decline of the European film. The European Union decided to do something against it, right? So the mother of all legal frameworks is the European Convention on Cinematographic Co-Production, right? There were bilateral treaties, and I think the oldest one is between Italy and France, but this is the first one which was signed and ratified by, I can't remember how many states, in 1992. And nowadays we have Canada, who's part of it, Armenia, who's part of it, and they're not really European. So why did they come up with that? Right? That's the reason. We have, and by we say, I'm referring to Europe, right? We're all part of the European Union. We have a diverse market. We have so many languages, but we're a population of 500 million people. So that's a market we can use if we get support. Okay? So, the reason why the European cinema survives is because we have the EU and we have media and we have support in developing, and because of the European conventions. So the European conventions basically gives us a legal framework that tells us how to co-produce with each other. Okay, and what it gives you support. There are co-production funds. For instance, there is the MDM, Middle German Film Fund, collaboration with the Dutch National Film Fund for developing children's projects. There is a German-Polish co-development fund and co-production fund. There is a German-Turkish co-production or co-development fund. I can't remember. There are tons of these little co-production funds which help you to cooperate with each other. And what does it mean, cooperating? That's the most important thing. It gives your film a citizenship. Your film is not a refugee. It's not like, these blue passport that's running around and you have no rights, but tons of obligation. You go under a treaty or the European Convention. What it gives your film a passport for each involved country, which means you are allowed to receive support in distribution, in development, in production, etc., etc. So that's what the European Convention gives you. And it also gives you the possibility, it's what it says, creative, financial, technical expertise, resources, as well as a sharing of risk. You can do a German film as a co-production. I did one. It was a bloody expensive film. So, but if I only finance 3 million of that, or a share of that, let's say 40%, and then 30% comes from another country and 20% from another country, I only, and the Germans, only take the risk for 40%, right? So you can do films where you would not be able to finance them because you can co-produce them. So what else is there? It gives you access and support to other markets because you can utilize your co-producers network. It improves your skills and knowledge, especially, for instance, the drinking habit of French teams on set, which is totally alien to the German thing. Have you ever shot with the French? They want their red wine during lunch. Have you shot in Germany? No alcohol on set. Yeah. Good luck solving that problem. Okay, well, that's the reality of your life. So you learn. And the citizenship, which is really, really important. So, but there are issues, of course. It's like a marriage. When you co-produce in Iran, there is this marriage on time. So you can marry as a man, you can marry a woman for 1 hour. But it's basically a marriage on time. In your case, if you co-produce 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years even, and if you don't like each other, and if you can't smell each other, it's going to be the war of the roses. So that's really, really, really important. As you can see, I started with the last one. Loss of control is a big issue. You're the lead producer, you've developed it, it's your baby, and suddenly you say, yes, I've raised my child, perfect, but now when it comes to, I don't know, gymnasium or the secondary school, I have another pair of parents who also take care of the child. On what? What are they doing? Do I trust them? Trust is a big issue, right? And the loss of control. It can dilute content. Remember the term Euro pudding? It went to a level that was really undigestible. And of course the cultural misunderstandings, they are great. They're possible. And I've done tons of co-production. I've produced, I think, 37 films, something like that. And let me tell you, each film is a prototype. And you need to be in a weird kind of mental strange disorder in order to grasp it and to understand it, right? Also, there are legal systems that clash. So you have, for instance, all the English language countries, they're common law countries, right? Plus Singapore and a couple of others, but that doesn't matter. And then you have continental Europe, which is not a common law country. So what does it mean? Factually, for you to understand, a common law country, their basic law book, textbook, is like this size. Our textbooks, law books, are like this. In return, the co-production contracts with the English-speaking countries is like this. And in our case, it's just like this. It's the reverse. They have a totally different system. They look at projects differently. And you need to really dive into it, research, and understand. So the legal system can really, excuse my French, screw you up. So you have to prepare. And of course it makes it more expensive. I mean, it's not only the overheads, it's not only the traveling costs, it's also producers, and they have to earn some money in order to survive, in order to do your projects, right? So you have not one producer's fee, you have 5 producers' fee or 4 producers' fee. You have the traveling cost back and forth, and it starts in development. Right, so, and you can lose a lot of money. So what do you need for that? You need to be able to have, first thing, and this is, in my experience, and I'm one of the ihrer group leaders, I can tell you, the biggest issue is, with young producers or young filmmakers, is you have to have a clear point of view. Which means, you need to know why you're doing this film, what you're doing there, for whom you're doing it. If you don't have that, if you don't know that for yourself, you're not able to communicate it. You need to be very clear and very straightforward in your communication, because you have the language issues, you have the cultural differences, you have the misunderstanding, and you have the customary use of certain things that are different in various countries, like the red wine. You need to have a clear production structure, and you need to allocate responsibilities. Whose duty is what? Who's taking the risk for what? Who is signing for what? If you're the lead producer, it's your job. Language. You don't speak English, you can't do any international co-production, except if you work with the French, then you need to work in French. That's, again, a different thing. I'm making fun of the French because I'm a bit envious of them, right? They have literally almost, if I calculated in relation, almost 3 times more money than we have, and they're very protective of their system, right? But it's also a very nepotistic system, and it annoys the hell out of me to work with them. Plus, if you co-produce with France, France is the best market for non-French or non-domestic language films. I give you an example. 4 months, 3 weeks, 2 days, right? Palme d'Or winner from Romania. In France, 400,000 admissions. In Germany, 16. The separation, Berlin Bear, this is like our national biggest film festival award, in gold and in silver and in bronze and whatever. They got tons of awards. In France, over 1 million admissions. In Germany, 136. So that's the reality. So you co-produce with the French, you lose the best market because they want it exclusively for themselves. That's really expensive money. Again, I'm envious. On the other hand, it's too expensive to bother. You need to know the various systems in order to use them for your benefits, right? And the devil lies in the details. I did an Irish co-production, and I thought everything is going fine, and we thought, okay, we can do the insurance, we can do it via Germany, and the Irish guys said, yes, why not? And I said, oh, it's not complicated, it's just a bloody film insurance, a liability insurance, Haftpflichtversicherung, right? Except the Irish see themselves as the window to the US. So that means they are very similar to the US and their system of so-called ambulance chases. So you're shooting here, there's a road, on the other side a pedestrian walks along, looks at your shoot, is distracted, stumbles and breaks his leg. You're responsible. So the liability insurance in Ireland is 13 million euro. You can't get a German insurance on that level. It's impossible. And we're talking about 40,000 regional effects that we're suddenly missing. So the devil really lies in the details. And the other thing is, you need social skills. You need social skills and you need to network. The networking in co-production is the beginning and the end. If you don't network, if you don't have these slight social skills, really, seriously, honestly, don't do it. Networking is what you need to do. You need to know people. You need to know who they are, how they work, on which level they operate, and what they can trigger, right? So, I have, as usual, a smartphone, and it has a great address list. I mean, the contact list is really huge. I could give it to you for free. It would be worth nothing to you. But that address list, in combination with me, is worth money. And I mean really cash. That's what networking means. I can, if I want to, if the project is worth it, then I could raise money, like in one day. It's very expensive money, mind you, but it is possible. So what determines the co-production country is story theme. Some themes might be relevant in Germany, they're definitely not relevant in France. The audience, obviously, if you have a special focus on, for instance, children's film, the Netherlands are brilliant for that. Cast crew, of course, we are now doing a Dutch-German co-production. We actually brought the Danish in because they have one of the best makeup artists in Europe. And so it became a Dutch-German-Danish co-production. Of course, your personal network. And unbelievably true, luck. It's the sign on your forehead, yeah, that you find the right person, that you suddenly meet someone on any reception, and you never know when these people come in handy, right? So, you need to do your research. That means Google, that means trade papers. You need to read your trade papers. You ask your film funds, you ask your film commissions, you ask your colleague. You build up your network and try to get the right people, and you can train for that. And there we come to the most important thing. You can literally train co-productions, and you can also build your network up from training courses, right? So I'm going to give you a brief and very quick overview about, I've picked up 3. 2 of them are funded by the European Union. The first one is ihrer. Ihrer is a training initiative which is actually the oldest training initiative we have in Europe for producers, and the highest rated one. Of course, I'm proud because I'm a member of it. Joran here as well, he was in my group in 2016, the famous D group 2016. ihrer focuses on the people. We use the projects, if people come with a project, we use the projects as templates, but that's not our main priority, right? And ihrer has a very specific philosophy, and it basically, to sum it up and simplify it, it's content cannot be extracted from financing structures and the people involved. It's all intertwined. So you change something in the financing, it has a direct impact on your story development. You change something in your story, it might have a direct impact on your financing structure. You just can't swap a 40-year-old French woman with a 40-year-old British woman with a 40-year-old German woman. They're totally different. They speak differently, they have a different culture, they have a different attitude. It has an impact, right? So, and it's a 3 times 1 week course, and it ends in the 3rd week with meeting around, I would say, 70 decision makers, among them funds, sales agents, distributors, equity investors, co-production markets, etc., etc. It's a very expensive workshop, but all of these workshops are expensive, and I don't know, some of the funds do support them. Not every fund in Germany. The MDM does. And also, you can put it as part of the development. Okay. Then we have ACE. Contrary to ihrer, they focus on projects and projects only, right? It's short. ihrer is short for European Audiovisual Entrepreneurs, and ACE is for Atelier Cinéma Européen. So basically, this is about art house, bigger art house productions, crossover projects. And it's not really the focus that ihrer has on the people. It's really, it takes your project and moves it through various stages. You discuss it with experts, you discuss it with your group people, the people that are with you together there, and you get, it's the same with ihrer, you get different perspectives from different countries, and you will see that every country and every cultural background looks at your project in a totally different way. And then we have a special form, which is Inside Pictures. It focuses entirely on English language projects. It's not funded by the EU as far as I know, and it's just for people who are interested in working with the US or UK. Right? So basically what happens is when you go and do a training initiative, it's like you have no idea what you're doing, really. That was me when I did ihrer in 2003. After ihrer, you still don't have any idea what you're doing, but at least what you know is, who can I talk to? Where do I get the information? What do I need? And how can I do a risk assessment? So basically, you come out as a jack of all trade and master of none. That's what you do as a producer. Okay? And then the last bit, which is important, is when you approach your future partners, because you can burn your project. If you go out early, and if people don't know you well enough, and you're new to the market, and the project is not really well developed, you burn it. Because then it's going around in the market 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and people start talking, because it's a small market. It's as big as a pea, right? And I literally know almost everyone. So I know if a project was in a co-production market number 1 and number 4 and number 5, and I think, okay, what's wrong with it? Right? Everyone would think that. So be careful. You need to be able to communicate the core element of your story. That's the most important thing. When you know what the film is about, when you know who you're targeting, and when it has a tone. It's like, there's sweet, sour dishes, there's spicy dishes. So what kind of dish is your project? It must have a tone, a brand, a color, or whatever. And that's when you're ready. And that's it. Thank you very much.